Hey, welcome back again to the Lead Volunteers podcast. My name is Josh Denhart. So thankful that you're here. Today's going to be a special one, gang. But before we jump in, hey, couple quick announcements. Hey, the Lead Volunteers podcast exists for you, the ministry leader, so that you can avoid burnout by making sure that you can stop that revolving door of volunteers. And we need you to be organized, right? So organization allows you to not lose volunteers, which allows you to not burn out and drop out. Well, there's more to it than just organization. There's more to it than just tactically figuring out how to not lose volunteers. There's really a lot of heart issues that are going on, and today is a heart issue day. We have a very special guest back again. He's kind of a regular on the podcast. It is the one and the only Mr. Vance Martin. Vance, thanks for being back with us, bud.
Thanks, man. I love you enough, Josh. You don't have to have me on the podcast to talk with me. I'll talk with you anytime.
That's right.
But I love this.
Yes.
I love doing this with
you. Well, some people know this, some people don't, but you and I have kind of a standing 1 hour phone call every single week, talk about our lives, so that's a real special thing. And so
some would call it a phone call, some would call it therapy.
Yeah, it's therapy for sure.
It's a little bit of both.
And I received that. Well, the interesting thing is it was really out of just these wonderful times of talking together. We were like, dude, why don't we just push record? And so this is one of those. And the title today is The Unfortunate Transformation of Our Heart. The unfortunate. Because if you are in leadership for any length of time, you begin to lose some of the beauty of your heart, and it begins to transform into this self-protected, postured entity. And today, Vance, as we were kind of talking through this is mind-blowing, and I've seen it both in myself and I've seen it in others. So just give us a quick 1-2 about you for our listeners. This is Vance Martin. Vance, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Josh. My name is Vance Martin, and I serve as the Vice President of Next Gen for Slingshot Group. And what we do is we build remarkable teams through staffing and coaching. So we're helping amazing leaders find great opportunities, and we're helping leaders go to the next level in coaching. So it's an incredible thing that we get to do. And part of what I love, I'm talking with all kind of leaders and pastors all the time. And what we're going to be talking about today, Josh, is something that came from one of those conversations. So I feel like a bumblebee, that gets to pollinate, gets to visit all the flowers and just kind of pollinate stuff around. So most of all the things I talk about, it's not mine. It's just I want to share all these amazing things that I'm learning and experiencing.
And it's a good fit, right? Slingshot Group and what you guys are seeking to accomplish and the leadership stuff that you're doing and the stuff with lead ministry and lead volunteers, it's a super, super good fit. Plus, we're good friends. Well, Vance, kind of like give us the opening of how this even works.
Yeah. So let me set the stage for you. And this is so essentially what we're going to do is we're going to look at 3 characteristics of the heart or qualities of the heart, if you will. And that we all start with in ministry, in our Christian life, or even just in youth.
Marriage.
We have all these things. And then over time, through pain, through adversity, those can transition and become something else. So that quality of the heart transforms into something that is not what God intended, but can take on more of our evil nature that becomes takes root even in ministry. And then often we take that, so we're going to look at what that becomes, and then how that is then presented, or we're going to say dressed up as, how it presents in a leadership form that becomes widely accepted.
It's the false self. But
it's
the false self.
And so the call is to return back to that quality of the heart that God has placed. So it's kind of 3 stages, and that's
and the first stage is the beautiful stage, and it's through pain and disruption that we get this really strong dose of reality, which then causes this negative transformation of our hearts. Well, let's jump in. Here's the first one. And kind of talk us through. The beautiful thing is innocence. That's the
Yeah.
quality of the heart. Number one is innocence.
Yeah, this purity, this innocence. There's almost this wide-eyed. I remember back when I first started ministry. I may call it rose-colored glasses.
Sure.
That everything is great, or you see this often with people that maybe work in the marketplace and they have this goal to work at the church and they just want to work at the church. I mean, because how
Right.
amazing could that be to work at the church? And then they work at the church and suddenly they realize that the people that they held on a pedestal as their heroes of the faith
Yes.
are actually human. And we begin to lose our innocence. The world begins to wash away our innocence of hope, because we're hopeful and we trust in the quality and the goodness,
Right.
in especially in ministry, because it's such a noble cause. We think that everybody else is on this same path and we have the same mission, but that's not always the case.
And then that
So
transforms our heart. We come in with innocence, and that transforms our heart to begin to take on a different
yeah,
posture. What is that next one?
yeah, cynicism. So innocence becomes cynicism. So what really is cynicism is think nothing is going to work out, everything is going to fail. I don't trust anybody. I'm
Anybody.
just waiting for you. I'm waiting for the shoe to drop, and you are going to fail me. So that hurt and experiencing pain, it becomes a posture of, well, it's not if, it's when you do hurt me. And the reality is that is true. People are going to hurt you, but it's how you receive that pain. Now,
Hmm.
what the cynicism turns into and how that presents itself as a leader, because often we take on that, we get rid of the innocence, we take on the
Or well, let's
cynicism.
say that we don't get rid of, we lose our innocence.
We allow that innocence to erode, that quality of our
Yes.
heart to erode, and what's left is cynicism. Now, we can't as leaders just go to say, yeah, I'm full of cynicism.
Because
So
because that's not a good quality. Therefore, we
no,
have to dress it up and make it into something that's more palatable and more, let me put on my suit and my tie. I'm not cynical. I am. Help us out.
I'm a realist. It becomes realism, and we begin to say, well, that's not going to work out because this is what's going to happen, and this is how that's going to fail, and we really need to stay within these parameters.
I've
and
been here for
and
a long time. Hey, listen, I know how this goes. That's actually cynicism and a
these people are going to
loss.
respond this
Yes.
way.
Yes. And so that is cynicism, which came as a result of a loss of innocence, but now it's dressing itself up and presenting itself as, hey, listen, I'm the old school, and let me tell you how this is going to go. We can't do that idea because, and that's really just cynicism.
Yeah, it's really because what that innocence is it's truly a belief.
Hmm.
Cynicism is we lose that belief in people. And often where
Yes.
I hear this a lot, especially in children's ministry circles, is we begin to have the realism of saying no for people. People are, especially when we're inviting them into our teams, this innocence believes people want to join this team. We have an
And they
amazing
want
mission.
good.
And
Yes.
and over time, we hear no, I don't have time. And then you become cynical, and the realist in you says, there's no use asking because they're going to say no.
Right.
And so even if somebody else says, hey, what if we come up with this awesome strategy for inviting people a part of our team? And the realist says, yeah, we've tried that before and people just don't
Right.
respond to it. So we probably shouldn't waste our
So
time.
that is the wet blanket. But it comes across as a wet blanket. But that leader who is puffed up and they don't want to be viewed as an icky-hearted cynicist with an icky heart of cynicism, they
Yeah.
dress it up and make it look better as, oh ho ho, let me teach you, oh Padawan learner, right?
Yeah, and so with this, why do we get there? Well, it's actually there's a vow that goes with each one of
Okay,
these.
I'm gonna.
And
This vow is
and
very hard to stomach.
yeah, the vow of this one is I vow never to trust or hope again. I'm not going to be put in a position where I believe the best and get hurt.
So, in other
And
words,
so
like the innocence piece, it's like, hey, you fooled me once, you actually fooled me twice. I'm smarter now. I
I'm
will
done.
never trust again. Arms
Yep, I'm
crossed
going to be the realist. I'm never going to be vulnerable. I'm not going to be in a position
to get
where
hurt.
I'm not positioned to win. And what in reality we vow that vow of never to trust again backs us into a corner, and we this is not what God intended. So we've got to release that vow and
Yes.
reprogram and say, I'm going to trust and put my faith. And the result, because what we're trying to do here is we're trying to control the outcome. And
Wow.
so, how do we come against this vow? Is we say, God, I'm going to be obedient and release the outcome to you.
And,
So, I'm
and,
going to
and
believe the best
yes.
and allow you to do your work. And it's the farmer that plants the seed, that waters, that has to believe that God is going to grow something
And so
instead of,
it's recapturing innocence.
absolutely, it's saying, God, I believe and trust. And even if they say no, even if they violate my trust, I'm still going to continue to plant seeds. I'm going to believe the best. I'm going to return to a place of innocence that
Wow.
says, I love people and want to give them a chance to
Now,
say no. Because oftentimes people will say no, 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 no until they say yes,
that's exactly right.
because God is working on their heart. And that process, we want the end result, but
Yes.
God often uses us as we disciple people to bring people, to push them, and they're going to resist, and we take that resistance as rejection,
Right.
and we become cynicist, and then that's what leads to that realism. And we've got to say, no, 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 I'm it could take multiple no's to get them to that yes. God may be using me to be
Yes.
rejected to get a point to they accept that
Now,
mission for him.
while we were while we were talking, I just did a real quick Google search of what the definition of cynical is, and it's believing that people are motivated by self-interest. It's being distrustful of human sincerity. Being
Mm,
distrustful. So all of a sudden, your innocence, you're like, no, 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 no. People are not sincere. They're people I don't trust any longer. So you're cynical. Well, Vance, this is a really interesting one. So the hope, podcast listener, is to return to a place of innocence. Am I right?
absolutely. Restore that innocence.
Restore innocence.
Uh,
And
that
that's gonna be the Lord, because if you've been in ministry for any length of time, it is ripe for cynicism. It is
Yes,
ripe for cynicism.
absolutely.
Okay, our
Yep.
second one now, Vance. This is another posture of the heart. That this is an unfortunate transformation of our heart. And so let's
Yeah.
go to
So
this second one.
yeah. So the second quality is curiosity. So this, curiosity wants to learn, wants to know, wants to
Yes,
explore, wants to
yes,
see the world, wants to see what could happen. What if we did this? What if I
openness.
experimented with that? Yeah, there's this openness of, I don't know everything. I don't have all the answers, and I need input in my life. Well, what happens over time is you get caught with not having the answers to the test. You fail a test, and that burns within you
Sure.
this pain of, man, I got caught not knowing the answers,
And I looked
and now
foolish.
I looked foolish. I looked bad. Somebody thought less of me. I can't be there again. And so we take on a posture. Curiosity becomes arrogance, and we take on this air of always having the right answer.
Dang.
I know and so the heart posture is, I know everything. I've been around for a while. I know it all. And what this is dressed up in, because obviously we can't walk around like that in ministry, is dressed up as authoritative knowledge. So I become the noble statesman that has
All of the
been
answers.
around. I have been there, done that. I've rounded the bases, and I don't want I want to help you not experience the same pain that I have in the past. So we don't want to learn new things. We don't want to try new things because I know everything. I have been there. I've experienced it all, and you become this authority. This is often you'll see this with leaders that lead from position and not influence.
Hmm.
They're really
Ooh,
posturing themselves
wow.
as
Yes.
the authoritative knowledge. So they keep you at arm's length because they're afraid that you're going to see the real side of themselves. And so they've lost that curiosity. They've lost this thirst for knowledge. They've lost a desire to know things. And how they present is I've been there and know everything. And then the vow to this,
Before we
you
get
know,
to the vow, what I want to say is that the beauty, again with innocence, this is now the beauty of curiosity. You don't know everything. You're open to new ideas. You're open to even what the Holy Spirit might reveal. And over
yeah,
time, you have found yourself being caught flat-footed. Somebody found out that you didn't know everything, and that made you feel extremely uncomfortable. And so now, rather than being arrogant, because like you said, that's not that's not a Christian trait. And so in Christian leadership, you dress it up to become an authoritative leader, which is more palatable, though it is rooted in darker places sometimes.
yeah, this is really pride
It's
at the end
pride.
of the day.
It's
This is,
pride.
a haughty spirit before destruction, and pride comes before a fall. This is, when we lose that. I know I am.
Yes.
Uh, I don't need anybody else because I have all of the answers.
And
I
so
am
I looked
right.
up this
These
definition. I looked up this definition as well. It says having an exaggerated sense of one's own importance or abilities.
Yes, that's it exactly. That it's this really this narcissistic leader that
Yes.
everything is black and white. There's no everything, it's right and wrong, and they are right and you are wrong. You're
And
either for them or against them.
and they're like in science. I'm a science guy, right? Science, one of the six big pillars of science is tentative, meaning your theory is subject to change. That's what tentative means, subject to change. Well, funny thing, science may be tentative, but scientists are often not tentative. In other words, we get adhered to an idea, and I've seen many ministry leaders who don't possess a spirit of being tentative. They think they know it all. Now, lead us to this vow, this really negative vow that can come from this.
Yeah. So this vow, it really comes from getting, like we said, getting caught, not having the answer, and looking foolish. And so this vow is to never not know again.
I
I am
vow.
never, I'm never going to be caught without the answers. And so what happens? How do you do that? Because that's not possible. How you do that is you make up the answer. Even and here's what happens with these leaders, and we find this, that if we don't know the answer, we make up the answer, or we say this is the answer even before we've done our homework, even before we've explored the context. we
Yes.
we know no, this is it. And we often jump to conclusions because curiosity, we think about this as in a posture of learning. But I think actually where this most finds itself rooted in a leader is in relationship with people. And it becomes in when there's conflict. uh Instead of being curious as to, wherever there's conflict, it's because of missed expectations. Someone
Hmm.
is hurt, there is pain. It's saying, I don't want to explore that. There's no need, because often they're the source of it. There's no need
Yes.
to explore this. I'm right. This is the answer, and you're wrong. I don't even want to know how I've hurt you. I don't want to know, because that's not possible, because I'm right. And so they
All the time.
lose all the
All the
time.
time. And
And
so
even if
now
even if they
this,
know they're wrong, they're
yes.
right.
The sad part about this, however, the truly sad part that breaks my heart is that you can bring this back to, because we can get really mad and angry at these leaders. We can even think that we know this leader, whatever. But it really, if we draw it all the way back, we should be sad for them or sad for ourselves that we have lost a sense of curiosity and a sense to openness to the world, and a sense that we shouldn't have this overinflated view of our own intellect, because there's way more to be known than I know. But we should feel sorry for that person.
Yes, absolutely. And that's what God wants us to return to,
Yes.
is that posture of curiosity. And really at the root of that, it's saying, I'm open to being wrong.
I'm open to being wrong.
I'm open to, and because we do this with God.
Yes.
We argue, we get into a place of arrogance, and we know we argue with God. And so God is trying to speak, and we become hardened to him and say, yes, I'm open to God, to whatever way you may be leading me or guiding me.
Very interesting. Okay, so our title again today is The Unfortunate Transformation of Our Heart. We come in with good things, and then we have experiences that cause us to lose innocence, to cause us to lose curiosity, but it also causes one more thing that we're going to speak about today, Vance, and talk about this last one of losing compassion.
Yeah, so compassion. And what truly is compassion? It's having this love and empathy for other people. So it's putting others first.
Mm-hmm.
It's seeing the needs of others. And what happens, obviously, when we're bright-eyed and ministry, we're thinking the best. We want to have compassion for everybody. Now, I will say, I think there's a true thing called compassion fatigue.
Fair.
Even Jesus retreated to the hills, and so I think there's this. We think we can, and oftentimes this is what leads to that, is we expend all of our compassion, our love, until we get compassion fatigue, and we go, I can't care anymore.
I can't give out. I can't care any longer.
I can't give anymore.
Wow.
And so what happens is the things that used to move you,
wow,
now you're callous towards, because when you think about the woman who had the issue of blood, what happened? She just touched the hem of his garment, and what did he say? Who touched me? I felt the power leave me. So you get this sense that even Jesus, who was God, he gave that compassion, he gave that power, and had to, in the scripture when he fed the 5,000, he's escaping. He is getting to the hillside. And so often we as leaders, ministry becomes this noble cause.
Yes.
We're giving and giving and giving, and not retreating and receiving.
And replenishing.
And because we cannot give anymore, is our skin, our compassion skin, our empathy for others becomes callousness.
That's right.
And we go, I just don't have any more to give. I am completely empty. I have nothing left to give.
And I don't really care.
I don't care. And often it's because we ourselves are in a place where we need to be cared for.
It's true.
And we're not. And we may not receiving the care that we need. And we say, I can't care for you because nobody's caring for me. And there's two sides of that. We should own our own spiritual and
self-care.
Emotional.
Yes,
absolutely. But there's also that place where we also have to be open to others. But when we get to this place where we don't care, we become callous. Obviously, callousness is not something that you can have in ministry, but what you can have is the thick skin of experience.
Okay. So let me walk people through this. So all of a sudden you come into a ministry context with this beauty, this beautiful heart perspective of compassion. You see yourself as a shepherd, and you see people like sheep without a shepherd. And then you begin to minister to them, and it sometimes doesn't turn out that well. And the sheep
bite.
sheep bite, and sheep also just run stinking clean off the cliff. And then you become callous. You're like, man, I gave my all. Watch this. Me, Mr. Josh. I one time had a guy come to me, and he and his wife were having difficulties, and he had, listen to this, $85,000 in credit card debt. And I was like, how does that happen? Well, I poured in, I tried to give sound advice, I spent time with them. Well, number one, he didn't change. Number two, their marriage fell apart, and it was an absolute disaster. And so in my heart of compassion, I spent a lot of time with them. But if I am not cautious, I'm going to see the next person as same song, second verse, same as the first. I'm not going to care as much. And Now watch this. What you said, though, is very interesting because we can't, quote, like, callousness isn't a good Jesus trait, but we can say, I just want to let you know I, ministry leader, have the thick skin of experience. It's really callousness.
I've created good boundaries.
Okay, yes.
I've separated myself. I've created boundaries because I've got to have this work-life balance. Now, all those things are good.
Yes.
I'm not saying that any of those things, but it is a very slippery slope. And we often hear that term, I've heard it in ministry. Hey, you got to have a thick skin around here. Well, what is thick skin? Thick skin is a callus.
Yes, it is.
That's what having thick skin means, that I'm not going to allow things to penetrate me. And when we don't allow things to penetrate, God cannot get a hold of our heart because of that callus, that thick skin. And so instead of saying callus, we say thick skin. I've got the thick skin of experience. I've been around. I know how to measure myself, but it's because I've drained myself of compassion.
Wow.
Where either I've emptied myself and not replenished myself, or I've tried to help someone and they rejected that help, or they didn't use my time wisely. It's the person that you try and invest in and coach and train, and then they still go off the rails, or they have a moral failure, and you go, well, that was a waste of my time. And so you go, I'm not going to do that again.
And so you're calloused.
Next time somebody needs something from me, I've been down that road. I've experienced that before. I'm going to be not moved by their need because I've got to protect myself.
Wow. And so this is another danger, right? This is another danger, the unfortunate path of transformation, the dark transformation of our hearts. And so I also appreciate these vows that you're giving us. So the person who has had compassion, they now develop a heart of callousness. They dress it up and pretend that this is a noble quality. This callousness is noble. And it's the thick skin of experience when it's actually just a whole bunch of hogwash and you need to get your heart softened again. What's the vow here?
Yeah, it's a vow to never care again. I'm not going to care.
Never care.
I'm not going to, because that, right, when we have that exposed skin, when we let people in, it often hurts.
Yes, it does.
And even because God wants us to feel the other people's pain. That's what empathy is.
It's
right. Allowing myself to feel someone else's pain. Now, I've got to be in a healthy position myself. That's the whole point of this. That's where compassion fatigue comes in. And so to protect ourselves, we say, I'm never going to care. I'm never going to care again. How we undo this vow is we say, I'm going to care for myself again.
Yes.
I'm going to allow me to be refreshed, to be restored. I'm going to allow God to minister to me. I'm going to bring people around me that give me life, that fill me up, that replenish my emotions, my spiritual well-being, so that I can be vulnerable and have the compassion of Christ.
This is amazing stuff.
Remove that callous.
So like I could actually go back in time when I first started in ministry. Yes, maybe it's the rosy colored glasses or whatever, but I had a level of innocence. I had a curiosity, and I wanted to learn the ins and outs of church leadership. And I wanted to learn how to help people, and I had robust compassion. And at the end of the day, we have to allow God to bring us back to those first loves all over again. This is
Yeah.
really, really, really powerful, Vance. I'm super, super excited. Kind of give us a closing word as we kind of wrap her up today.
Yeah, I'd say that there's a scripture that comes to mind. I believe it's Jeremiah 2:14. And it says, "My people have committed two sins. They've rejected me, the mainspring of life, and they've built their own cisterns, broken cisterns unable to hold water." And when I look at these qualities of the heart, that is the mainspring, the well,
Preach.
that comes from Christ that we've rejected. And the cynicism, the arrogance, the callousness, that is us digging our own cisterns. We're trying to adapt in our
Yeah.
own human ability and carry the weight of ministry and being a minister of the gospel in our own capacity, in our own fleshly nature. And those are broken cisterns that don't hold water.
And the
And
interesting
so,
thing, Vance, that I was thinking about is like when Jesus said to little children who adult, calloused, cynical, know-it-all leaders were like, get those kids away. And Jesus said, if you don't develop a heart of faith like these little ones, you're not in the kingdom. And so a
yeah,
kid has innocence, a kid has curiosity abounding, and a kid has compassion when they see another kid fall down, right? And it's really out of our quote, getting older wisdom that we develop these. They're really sad coping mechanisms for it's
self-preservation.
self-preservation, and we need to return. Watch this. As we close, there's a great quote that a friend of mine said. He said, "I want to love as if there's no risk of being hurt." And that's a
Absolutely.
tall, tall, tall order. Vance, thank you so much. This is really, really wise stuff, and it's been a hard conversation to go, wow, this is where our heart degradates towards, but there
Yeah.
is hope. We can have hope. Vance, thank you so much for being on the podcast with us
Thank you,
today.
Josh.
This is
Absolutely.
good
My
stuff. Well,
pleasure.
gang,
Thanks for having me.
this has been one more episode of Lead Ministry Live and the Lead Volunteers Podcast. Thank you guys so much. Take care of your hearts, and let's return to that spirit of innocence and of curiosity, and return to that spirit of being open in compassion to the world. Thank you, guys.